Hi there, how are you doing? I'm Anne and for this video I'm woodburning this dog portrait. I'll guide you through all the steps I did to make this. I started to outline the eyes and then fill it in with a small round shader. I used mostly circular motion for this to make a pretty smooth gradation. The eyes are a little lighter in the middle where the highlights are. I did the dark parts of the eye first and left the lighter parts untouched for now to get an obvious separation between the eye and the surroundings. Then I used the edge of the shader to burn in the fur. To make it look realistic, you have to burn the fur in the direction that it grows. And start a bit lighter because you always can make it darker, but it's difficult to reverse it. I tried to speed the footage up in a way that you can still see what I'm doing, and I left some real-time footage in between in case you want to burn something similar. If you follow me for a while, you may notice that I used my old background for this video again. It's because I tilted my work surface so I could burn in an angle. I don't have an easel yet, so I fabricated something myself, but it looked ugly. That's why I covered it with my old background. I'm a newbie to pyrography. This is only my third project. The last woodburning project was a spotted deer on a suitcase. That was a smaller image and the wood was quite difficult to burn because it was a different quality. It turned out nice, but I couldn't get much detail in that artwork. This one on the other hand, I used better quality wood and it's a bit bigger. So at the time I've done that one eye, I really impressed myself. That was the moment that I suddenly thought, whoa, this can be one of the most realistic artworks I've done so far. It took me about 3 years to get at this level with pen and ink, and this is only my third pyrography piece. But of course, the choice of wood makes a big difference, all the tutorials on YouTube that I've watched, and my drawing experience in general. I already am familiar with the basics, such as knowing how to look at the reference photo and noticing details. I just wish that I had the opportunity to try pyrography a bit earlier in my life, because I really love this. In this portrait, I really pay good attention to every little difference in value and the direction of the fur. Normally a reference is just a guideline to make a representation of a random animal, but this is a special one. This isn't just some random dog, this is Daisy. Daisy was the dog from my husband's uncle and aunt and they asked me to make a portrait of her. Of course I wanted to do that, drawing animals is my favorite thing to do. But I was a bit anxious to start because unfortunately Daisy is no longer with us. She passed away a few months ago, so I really wanted to make this perfect. She was a wonderful dog. She was a very sweet, happy and active dog. Although I'm a cat person, I really liked her. She was already in a family when I met my husband back in the days. That's a little over 13 years now, so she will be missed definitely. You may see me changing from the small round shader to a transfer tip to burn with. Overall they create very similar marks, but I found that the transfer shader was a bit softer. If you use only the very tip of it, I thought it produces a little less heat blobs on the wood. Of course I have to experiment a bit more with all the different tips to get the smoothest result, but that will come with practice. In the meantime, for this project, I used them both to get variation in the fur, and also when the pen gets a little bit hot from burning, I switch to the other. My husband's aunt doesn't know I've started this project already, and she also don't know which medium I chose, so it's a big surprise when she gets it when we visit them. Of course, at the time this video comes out, she already received the portrait, but at this moment when I'm editing the video, I'm extremely nervous and curious about what they think of this artwork. I'm sure they like it. I hope that it is what they had in mind. I didn't know exactly how I wanted to do the ears, as they are a bit out of focus. Her eyes and nose are beautiful sharp in focus, but the ears are a bit softer. They also has a slightly different texture. I tried to make the ears not as detailed as the eyes, because the eyes are the most important, but mainly focus on the values with just a little bit of texture, if that makes sense. The darker ear in front looks really soft with some longer fur. I switched to my spoon shader as that can create a bit softer texture and it's a bit bigger, so it should work a little faster as well. I didn't get the exact details I had in mind, but it turned out okay. I was really focused on the details, but I had to keep in mind that although this is a portrait of a specific dog, it didn't have to be perfect. As long as I can catch Daisy's resemblance, it should be fine. My husband's aunt asked me to make her portrait. She likes my artwork, even if it's not perfect. By the way, if anyone wants an exact copy of the photo, they may want to print the photo itself and hang that up on the wall. With this portrait, my husband's aunt said that I could choose the art medium of my liking. I know for a fact that she especially liked the rabbit I burned a while ago, so I chose to use pyrography. Also because the warm tones of the wood really suits Daisy's personality. For a moment I thought about glass engraving her, but I didn't want to do that inside with all the glass dust and my cats walking around, and outside it's a bit cold and rainy lately, so that has to wait until I've set up a proper place for that. To darken up the values, I slow down my hand movements or turn up the temperature of the wood burner. I don't use a really high temperature because then you really have to rush through your artwork. It's much faster of course, but you also increase the chance of making mistakes. My husband's aunt asked me to make a postcard size portrait so she could frame it. Usually, postcard size is about 10 by 15 centimeters, but I struggled a bit with a nice composition, so in the end I went with 15 by 15 centimeter, that's 7 by 7 inches. That's about postcard size, but square, and it should fit many different picture frames. I hope she don't mind. Doggy noses are a bit complicated. I start light and slowly build up more value by doing circular motion. The nose has a bit texture of its own, so don't worry if you can't get a smooth shading. I looked at the reference to see where the highlights are. There are a few on top of the nose and underneath the nostrils. Those highlights give the nose its shape and also distinguish the different sections from each other because it's quite dark. The nose is about as dark as the eyes. I add some extra texture by tapping lightly with the tip of the shader on the surface. A sort of stippling before I darken the nose some more. After that I go in with my engraving pen. I use the small round diamond bit and lightly tap the surface to create some lighter textures. It creates the lovely illusion of a wet doggy nose. The nose in my artwork is maybe a little different from the reference, but overall I think I've done a nice job. I also use the engraving pen to dig out the white whiskers. The darker whiskers I can easily burn in, but it's a bit difficult to burn around the white ones, so I engrave them. Because the wood in that area lies beneath the surface, it doesn't pick up the heat of the wood burner that easy, so they remain untouched, or at least I can still see them in the end and touch them up a bit more. For the rest of the snout, I first burn in the darker spots and then burn the dark area underneath the nose. When I have that in place, I can burn the white fur. The white fur is a bit tricky because the wood isn't white. But if you look at the reference, nothing actually is completely white. There are some shadow areas and you can still see the texture of the fur. So you don't want to leave that area unburned. If you go over it with several light layers, it still reads as white fur, especially once you've got the darker surroundings filled in. This portrait gives me the confidence that I can make other animal portraits as well. I have a bunch of wood laying around already, also some big pieces of live edge pear wood. That pear wood wasn't cheap, so I saved that for the time I already had some practice and experience with pyrography. But although I still have to practice some more, I think I want to give it a try very soon. The rest of the head is just the same as what I already did. I just looked for some distinguished parts that makes Daisy Daisy, like the two dark hairs on her cheek with the lighter spot around it. The rest of her body is a bit tricky. It's out of focus, so there is no clear, crisp texture. But on the other hand, I want the face to be the focal point of this portrait, so I don't want to put that much detail in a body anyway. I lightly outline some fur to have some main landmarks in place, like change of direction in the fur. Normally, for a realistic look, you don't want to outline your piece because it can look a bit cartoony that way, but I kept it light so it blends in with the value when I'm finished. Especially in the white area, I wanted to erase the graphite sketch so it doesn't shine through the light fur. In the original photo, she's in front of a darker background, but in this one I didn't want to include the background. In a case like that, you can choose to lightly darken up the area around the white fur, but I also didn't want to lose the contrast in the area underneath Daisy's chin. Therefore, I chose to leave the background completely untouched and just make the chest a little bit darker. I think in the end that I still managed to keep the impression of white fur, also because of that bit darker fur section in the right hand corner. Every artwork goes to at least one or more ugly faces. I stayed in that ugly face for quite some time in that white chest area. I think it's because it was really light fur, so you can't hide mistakes and every stroke you make really stands out against the light background, and your brain wants to fight you because it says that the fur is white and you keep on adding more value. In all honesty, I was a bit nervous to keep on going because of that. If you experience such a thing as well, don't give up. Keep going. In the end, it will solve itself. It just needs an equal amount of layers of fur as the rest of the body, but really light ones. Lower the temperature down on your burner and burn a bit faster, but keep adding layers. In the meantime, I switched to a different shader. This one is much bigger. It can produce softer strokes and is quicker because of its size. With this one also, I mainly used the very tip of the shader for the fur texture, but I also softened the texture quite a bit down later on by adding a bit more value over it with the entire flat of the shader. When I began to burn the darker section in the right hand corner, that was the moment I saw the whole piece starting to come together. If you see the photo and the artwork side to side, of course you see some differences, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. For the finishing touch, I used a box knife to scrape away some blobs and to neaten things up, but that's it, it's finished. If you have some suggestions for next time, or questions, or whatever, leave them in the comments down below. I try to reply to everyone. Thanks for sticking around. Have a nice day, until next time.